r/ask Reddit. What's the most disturbing realization you've come to? That the text you sent to that girl might come off as douchey. Maybe you should send another text to clear up the potential misunderstanding. Oh god, you made it worse. I avoid this issue by never texting girls, though the fact that they won't give me their numbers might make it even easier. I respect women so much that I stay completely away from them. My 3 brothers' birthdays are all within a 3-week range. One day I did the math and subtracted 9 months and realized the epicenter of their birthdays was 9 months and 2 days after dad's birthday. Well, at least you know mom was consistent with dad's gifts. That as I get older, the people and things I've admired are going away and not existing anymore. This was a big one for me. Lots of false idols, very few real ones. I don't know if they're false idols, as much as unrealistic expectations for individuals. We desire such perfection from the people we admire, but that doesn't take into consideration that every person has flaws. I find I do better when I temper my expectations from people, acknowledge the negatives, but admire the positives. Human beings are far more complex than black and white. My wife and I realize that one of us will die before the other, leaving the other alone for an indeterminate amount of time. You might both die in a horrible fire. Kinda like mine. I was laying with my head on my so's chest last night and could hear her heartbeat. It dawned on me that all it takes is that heart to stop beating and my whole world life comes crashing down. Something so small could pretty much destroy me. I'd say that was pretty disturbing. Love is great, but I guess kinda sucks too. My whole life I've always felt like I was searching for something or meant to do great things and just haven't found that something. I'm slowly starting to realize that there is a very good possibility that this may never be the case. I'm not sure how I feel about it either. It's all about perspective. If your scope is too big, you might end up feeling like a failure. But if you keep your perspective a little more realistic, then you might find that you are doing great things. I'm going through the same thing. And it's a crappy realization when you start to understand what you truly are and aren't capable of. You don't have as much money as you thought you would. Your athletic skills are dwindling. You've never even attempted to write that novel because there's not enough time in the day. Sometimes I'm not sure how I feel about it all, but I try to keep my perspective realistic so that it doesn't bog me down. I can do great things for my family or small community. No matter how sweet and nice you are to people doesn't mean they will care about you. Can confirm. Source: I don't care about you. The older you get, time seems to speed up. I recently bought my first house, and by recently I mean 2015. It feels like it was yesterday that I bought it, and it's been 2 years already. Our perception of time is logarithmic. It is indeed disturbing, because from that perspective, assuming you're in your 20s, you've already experienced more than half of your life. As a young teenager celebrating New Year with all the extended family, I noticed my great-grandfather celebrating with everyone else. It dawned on me that one day it might be me in his shoes, celebrating with my family, yet virtually everyone celebrating with me in that future are total strangers to me now, and almost everyone I know and love around me now will be strangers or distant memories to those people I don't know yet whom I will call family. That I am that friend, the one people only call when everyone else is busy. You need to go out and make better friends. I know I hate it when people say that like it's the easiest thing in the world, because it's not. It's really ducking hard as an adult to get out and find people that you really connect with and share interests with and want to spend time with, whose lives aren't already full. The best advice I could give is to find some hobbies that really interest you, and dive headfirst into them, and then try to find groups of people who do that thing. That people tend to judge others based on action, not intent. One out of character statement or action can permanently alter others' perception of you. And we judge ourselves on intent, not action. That most people choose convenience over compassion. I think this is super apparent with how disposable all our products are nowadays. Don't feel like washing dishes? Plastic water bottles and paper plates. Don't want to tinker with that machine that just broke? Order a new one on Amazon and it will here tomorrow. People don't give the time of day to realize the repercussions of this convenience. From the very first time I met my sister, When I was 2 and got to hold her when she came home from the hospital, I knew I had an ally, a co-conspirator against the United Parent Front. Whatever else came up, when it came down to it, we had each other's backs. I mean, sure we had our tiffs. What siblings don't? But she was the most caring, loving person I have ever known. She would do almost anything for me if I really needed it, even if I didn't realize I needed it. Almost anything. I needed her to not kill herself. In the end, that was the one thing she could not do. That in turn almost killed me. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to live through. But I have lived through that. I have, for the most part, learned to cope. What disturbs me now is those future plans we had which now will never be. For example, there's a statue in my parents' library my father had made for my mother's birthday when my sister was 4 and I 6. My father, sister, and I modeled a few times over the course of a month before my mother's birthday, and it was really difficult for us to keep the secret at that age. But we did. The sculptor used photos of my mom for her part. Despite all the effort that went into it, it's really an ugly sculpture, but we can't really get rid of it because of the memories. My sister and I always joked that when my parents both died we'd have to decide who had to keep the sculpture. We'd then gift it back and forth to each other in funny or discreet ways. Talking about that plan for that ugly sculpture could always make us smile. Now that ugly sculpture will be all mine. I won't be able to give it to my sister or sneak it into her house. But I can't get rid of it because of the memories. That thought, among many of its kind, is one of my most disturbing. I will never get to attend her wedding nor she mine. I will never be an uncle to her children nor she an aunt to mine. All those future plans, some I knew and some I still realize year on year that I think always expected, none will be. There are few things so disturbing. My dad died when I was 16. One of the hardest things to deal with is that this is a forever problem. He didn't see me graduate high school or college, and he won't be there when I get married. Every milestone in my life will be slightly tinged with grief because my dad won't ever be there. I frequently have things I want to discuss with him, like the steps in my apartment that have hinged tops and are little storage compartments. He was a carpenter and would have loved them. There are constant reminders that my dad is gone and I hate that it is a forever problem. People tell you to be strong and expect you to move on eventually. But although I'm no longer crying every day, this grief isn't something that really ends. It just becomes manageable. My sister and I are very close. Having felt the pain of losing my father, I can only imagine that it's got to be a little worse to lose your sibling. Sorry for so many words. I just wanted to say that I understand where you are coming from and it's awful. No matter how much someone you love is ruining their own life, they are the only person who can do anything to change themselves. Ducking, tell me about it. The fact that I essentially have no power to help them if they aren't willing to accept it drives me nuts sometimes. That in a few generations of my family, no one will remember who I am. Have you considered becoming a ghost? I'd prefer a vampire, but that might be a bit more challenging. That I am painfully, boringly normal in most ways, and only unique in ways that distance me from those I prefer to be closer to. Nothing wrong with that, although, if you want to be a little more interesting, start going through random hobbies and find something you really love. My parents will actually die one day. Every time I think about this, I think about how it is better for my parents when I outlive them, and this is the way of life. I can't even imagine what pain it'd be to visit your own child's funeral. My cat's crusty butt has touched everything on my desk. One of my friends works at a vet's office. They have one of those naked cats as kind of like their unofficial mascot, and she just roams around doing naked cat things. But apparently what no one tells you about naked cats is that there's no fur to stop their buttholes from suction cupping all the surfaces they sit on. So her office just makes their intern follow this cat around and clean up all its butt puckers off the glass. My parents divorced when I was 5. It was nasty and apparently I was a shitty kid after that. Although I really don't remember ever feeling like I was doing anything wrong, and when I look back I still don't understand why I was perceived so badly. Anyways, I used to spend a month on my aunt and uncle's farm every summer, and for a month a year I felt like I was part of a real loving family, and those were the happiest days of my childhood. Until one summer, I was probably 7 or 8. They had come to pick up me and my sisters, and I accidentally overheard my dad arguing with them, begging them to take me. They refused. Everyone loaded into the car and I cried as they pulled away. My dad tried to explain that he decided I should stay so we could spend some one-on-one time together. But my dad worked a lot, so I spent the next month basically alone in an empty house. That's when I realized I was never going to have the family I wanted. I had a similar experience just later in life. I was basically adopted at 15 by my best friend's family. Everything was great. Thought they had accepted me. I had totally accepted them as blood. One day my phone breaks. Friend's mom gives me her old one to turn on. One of those Nokia bricks from the late 90s, I think. Well, she never erased her storage. So got a message from my friend on the new phone and decided to scroll up for some reason. Loads of texts between him and the fam talking about how I was worthless, and the best thing for them would be to get me out on my own so they wouldn't have to deal with it. I was maybe 24 at this time. Fresh college graduate waiting tables when I first got home. Some shit just doesn't heal, I will never truly be able to understand another person, their experiences, thoughts and emotions. On the same line of thought, I've realized the immense isolation of the mind. How alone can one be inside its own head? Not only will you never truly understand anybody, but nobody will ever truly understand you. This is why we need the Borg. This is why we should be assimilated. My cat doesn't try to eat me just because I'm bigger. Never stopped mine from giving it a shot. My mother was sexually assaulted by her father for her entire childhood. I had grown up sleeping on her childhood bed frame. The realization that she probably was raped multiple times on the bed frame that I grew up sleeping on hit me one night in 8th grade. I couldn't stop puking. Or think instead, your mother replaced brutal memories with loving ones of her tucking you in each night? I don't know when the last time was I saw optimism of such scale. I love you. That the purpose of your adult life is to save money so you don't run out of money when you can't work anymore. I hadn't thought of it like that before, and now I need a hug, So many misunderstandings and innocent mistakes have far-reaching consequences. A couple months ago, I asked my brother why he never sang along to our old favorite songs with me anymore. Turns out 10 years ago, I jokingly told him that he sucked at singing, and he had never sang around people since. I've been ducked up over that for a while. That for the most part everyone is just winging it all the time and about everything, so no one knows what they are doing. This was more comforting than disturbing for me. It means I'm not the only one that doesn't know what I'm doing. Sitting in my Western Civ history class, I realized all the historic figures we know and love are either batshit crazy or narcissistic. The things I used to like about myself are no longer things that describe me. As someone in the military, it was kind of terrifying seeing some of the people I served with. Like, the American public tends to think we are all hard-working heroes, and in reality we're a bunch of dumb ducks straight out of high school. I could mention something like plenty of people across the planet are being mutilated and killed for no good reason while I'm sitting at my desk mowing on Aureus, but that seems a bit typical. So instead, as a personal life realization, the chick I spent 11 years trying to appease, being the absolute best friend she's ever had, the bigger brother she never had, and investing my blood, sweat, and tears into making sure she was living comfortably and happily, will never love me the way I love her. Just thinking about that still does a number on my head. People aren't under any obligation to love you, no matter how much suffering you experience for this false sense of needing to be someone's guardian. It doesn't matter if that person was your only source of happiness. Love is a two-person job, a deal, not an obligation, not something that's one-sided. Give and take. You can give a lot and take almost nothing, but don't expect any sort of reward to come out of it simply because of that. Wish I'd known that from the beginning. The amount of wealth inequality in this world, more importantly, how the rich can just give an insignificant amount of money to the poor and completely change poor people's lives. and still not many do it. I visited a poor rural government school in India. Most kids there are from extremely poor backgrounds. The government gives free lunch to the kids in school, and this is an incentive for these kids to stay in school. When I went, I realized these kids did not have plates because the government did not pay for that and expected people to bring their own. Almost half of the kids could not do that, so they would wait for the other half to finish eating and then use their plates. This broke my heart. So I offered to buy every kid in the school plates for lunch. It cost me $100 to buy plates for 200 kids. Next afternoon, I could see that all the kids suddenly felt like they had the biggest luxury in the world. Have their own plates for food. Each kid could not stop smiling and treated their plates like the most valuable possession they had. I will never forget that. I was thinking to myself, these kids did not ask to be born to a poor family in a third world country. Sometimes the world is just not fair. I wish rich people realize how lucky they were and would do more to reduce suffering of others not as lucky as them. That everyone in my house, husband and 2 kids, has been in my vagina. Thanks for the chuckle in this depressing thread. There was a post in Shower Thoughts a week or 2 ago where the OP said something about how he thought we should be able to just turn off our phones and disconnect from social media etc for a couple days if we wanted to without having to feel weird about it or explain ourselves to anyone. It kind of ducked me up because I realized I probably could do just that and no one would even notice. In fact, it would take a lot longer than a couple days before anyone noticed. I've ruined my future. It's never too late to try to turn the train around. Trust me, been turning for 5 years now. Mental illness doesn't go away, you just have to deal with it. People can be absolutely evil, heartless beings. Once you see firsthand the terrible, violent and gruesome things one person can do to another, it opens your eyes. I will always be suspicious of every person I meet now. Law enforcement is one of those jobs that truly changes how you see the world. School, half a lifetime of work, brief freedom, death. You never know the last time that you're going to do something until the moment has long passed. You don't know when the last time you'll carry your child in your arms, the last time you'll see a once close friend, the last time you'll play a game. All of these and much more until you look back and realize that you haven't done it since and most likely never will. We're slowly killing our earth and we, for the most part, don't care, can't do anything about it. That I've probably thrown away enough decent food in my life to eat for a few months straight, and then realizing that the same goes for almost everyone who has access to a stable supply of food. Think of all the pigs and cows and chickens that have been slaughtered and simply just thrown away, or the crops harvested and cleaned and packaged just to end up in a landfill. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.